Hello and welcome to this video on working with the design templates. In this video we're going to go through the basics of working with the design templates, including downloading them, working with Photoshop Elements to create a basic design, and then uploading those designs to FolioWeb. So in this video we'll cover the basics of how to work with the first few problems to get you started. So the first thing we want to do is download the templates, and the templates are available on the resources page of the Designing Visuals website. You can download the specific templates from each one of the problem pages, or I would recommend you download the entire zip archive so you have it all in one spot, and we'll do that today. Save the templates on your desktop or some other purposeful location. Decide where you're going to be working from. Create a folder on your desktop, for example, called DesVisWeb, or put that folder inside My Documents or some other convenient place so you always know where your stuff is and keep your work organized. It'll save you time in the short term. So here we are on the Designing Visuals homepage, and we'll click on the Resources tab, and you can see we've got some instructional videos here, but the second section is the design templates. And there are a series of design templates, but I'm going to download the zip archive here. Now again, this is a zip archive, and Windows has zip archiving and de-archiving built in now, but I use a program called WinRAR. It's just a little bit more sophisticated, does a few more things. But when this dialog box comes up for you, just choose Save. And again, place it someplace on your desktop that makes sense to you. And again, desktop. And now once that's on my computer, I'm going to open it. And this is again is that WinRAR program. And I'm going to choose Extract. Now whether you use WinZip or WinRAR or the built-in zip functionality of Windows, sooner or later you're going to find an Extract button in Windows. It's called Extract All Files. Click that button. And again, here I'm going to navigate to the desktop. All that's fine, and I'm done with this. Out on my desktop, I've got a folder now called Templates, and inside Templates is a folder called Downloads, and there are all my design templates. So back on my desktop, I no longer need the templates.zip file, so I'm just going to toss that away, but I definitely want to keep the templates folder available for me in the future. So our work with creating a design begins by opening one of the templates, the appropriate templates for the problem, with Photoshop Elements. And the easiest way to do that is to choose right-click and choose Photoshop Elements as the program to open up the file with. And then as we'll see, we're going to right-click on the layers and duplicate them. And then we're going to rename the layers and move them to the new locations that we want. And ultimately, once we're happy with our design, we're going to save it and use the required names in the problems. So let's see how that process works. So here I am back to my desktop, and for the first few problems I'm going to be using the template, at least for the first problem I'm going to be using the template1 grid PSD file. And so I'm just going to right click on that and choose Open with Photoshop Elements. And that's going to open Photoshop Elements, and here I am with that file open and the basic interface for Photoshop Elements. This is version 9 in front of me here. Very similar to actually version 8 and version 7. One of the things I would recommend you do right away is just double click on this Project Bin tab to make it go away, and that gives you just a little bit more room on your screen to work with. Okay, so and then once we're here, we have a little bit of this sort of gray border around here. We can begin to use a very important function in Photoshop and Photoshop Elements, the Zoom function, and you can go to View and choose Zoom In. But while you're here, just notice the keyboard shortcut is Control Command on the Macintosh, Control plus. So we're going to do Control and plus here, or just zoom in there. The corresponding zoom out is Control and the minus key. So I'm going to use both of those and just demonstrate how they work here. So we'll zoom out with the menu, but holding down the Control key on my keyboard, I'm going to click the plus sign, and that zooms in and keeps zooming in, or Control minus, and that keeps zooming out. So these are probably the most popular keyboard shortcuts in all of Photoshop land, Control plus and Control minus to zoom in and zoom out. So I'm going to zoom in so that my design takes up basically the full screen here. Okay, so now what we have around here is the template background, and over here on the right hand side is the layers palette. Hopefully you had a chance to read about that in your textbook. We have the basic 2-unit square, and as we work with additional design templates you'll have more building blocks here to work with. And then we have a background layer which gives us this white area here, and then we have the grid layer which is the fine gray lines here. And the visibility icons mean we can turn off or on visibility. They're all visible. The eyeballs are all there. But just to show you, we can click off on that and the grid template goes away. Be sure to turn off the design template. the grid template when you are ready to save your files and turn them in. So I'll turn it back on as we're working with them to use those as a grid. In subsequent problems, the design grid gets a little bit more complex. It gets divided up, and we'll see how that works in just a second here. So what we're going to do is, for our first problem, is the only thing we're allowed to work with is this unit square, the 2-unit square, and copies of it. So how do I make a copy of that? Well, again, multiple ways of doing it, but right-clicking is by far the easiest. So I'm just going to right-click and then choose Duplicate Layer. Okay, so now a smart thing to do here is to pause and rename your layers. It makes finding them easier in the short term. What you're going to find here is that all of these black layers look the same. And I'll just show you, if I don't choose to rename it, it's going to say 2-unit copy. So now I have 2-unit and 2-unit copy. I don't know which is which, and I never will. So if I leave the default alone here, it's going to be very difficult for me to tell which layer is which, except I'll have to drag it around and try to identify it sort of physically here. So I'm going to get rid of this layer. Just to show you a couple of quick things here. I can click on it and choose Rename Layers and type a better name, and I think I'm going to put this one over in the lower right hand corner here, so I'll call this one lower right and click OK. I could also delete this and start over, and just for practice I think I'm going to do that. Right click and choose delete the layer, and you have to be careful, this is only undoable. You can do Control Z to undo this, but there's no sort of recycle bin like you might be used to. So I'm going to click again to duplicate this layer, and again I'll call this one middle this time. So if you just discipline yourself and take a moment and name your layers, it'll save you some grief as you try to remember which is which and move things around in just a minute here. Okay, so now I have a 2-unit layer, which is in my lower left, and I have a middle layer, and that middle layer is exactly superimposed on top of the 2-unit layer. So to move it, what I want to do is choose the Move tool, which is the arrow, and just simply click and drag on that layer, and it'll snap to the correct location. It'll snap on my grid lines there. Okay? Now, just to sort of work on a couple of additional features here, because you'll need them down the road a little bit, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to show you the nudge feature in Photoshop Elements. And the nudge feature is really important for working with graphics. And it really is just using the keys on your keyboard, that is up, down, left, and right, to move the box, the element selected 1 pixel in that direction. So if I press the right arrow, I move the box 1 pixel per press of the arrow key. So you can get very precise with your alignment of stuff in the future when you don't have the ability to snap to things like we have here. So the down arrow and the right arrow I can move very precisely, and it makes lining things up very easy. Okay, now I'm going to Control minus to zoom out. So I have a basic design. I have 2 squares going, and for problem 1 all I get is, between 1 and 9. I could fill it all up or just leave 1 there, but I've created one now. So let's think about saving this as my first prob01a.gif variation. So before I save, I always want to make sure I turn the grid off. There it is. So there's my design. Don't worry about the little handles here. Now I'm going to go up and choose File, Save As. But choose Save for Web. Save for Web. Now, this file is solid colors, and as we'll see in a second here, there are really only 2 kinds of web graphics, GIF and JPEG, and the new one is PNG, but that's a little bit more advanced and not completely universal yet. So we're going to be dealing with GIF and JPEG, and the easy way to remember these is GIF is for, G is for graphics, and that means solid colors like logos and solid elements, text and solid elements. And JPEG is the Joint Photograph Engineers Group, the P for photograph. So G for graphics, P for photograph. Well, this is clearly a graphic. These two systems, these two file formats, compress the graphics to make them much faster to load on the web. But they do so in very different ways. GIF does so by reducing the amount of colors, and JPEG reduces it by changing the quality of the image. So you want to be careful to use the right one for the right purpose. When you choose JPEG on something that should be a GIF, not only does it not compress well, but it looks ugly, and the same is true in reverse as well. So when one works well, the other one doesn't work at all. So you have to be careful to choose the right one. So GIF is the correct choice here because this is a graphic. And GIF works again by reducing the number of colors available. Here we really only have two colors, black and white. So I could choose two colors. Before I do that, let's just take a quick look over here. The original is 942K, about a megabyte. That's pretty large for the web. That on even fast connections takes quite a bit of time to, a few seconds at least to download. On a slow connection, much, much longer. But notice that when it's compressed with the current settings, it becomes about 2% of that size. And we can get that even smaller. The goal here is to make it as small as possible, but maintaining the full quality. So if I go from 256 down to 2 colors, well, it didn't change, but that's okay. In many cases, it will get even smaller than that, and that will give me, and in fact, I'll just say I don't need transparency and I don't need dither, and we won't bother with what those mean. But I can get, by tinkering with these settings, I can get, the goal is to get this number as small as possible while visually inspecting it to make sure that the quality is as close to the original as possible. Here they're identical. So now just to illustrate this point one step further, let's switch this to JPEG, and again notice the number down here when I go to JPEG. Now it jumps to about 5 times the size that it was here. And if you zoomed in here and saw things, I can go lower quality here and make that smaller. I can go higher quality and make that larger slightly. But much less compression here, and this will get to be much more important when we're working with different kinds of images. So again, GIF for graphics, solid colors, and JPEG for photographic areas. Okay, we're going to click on OK. And now we're going to place this wherever you're going to place things. And just for illustration today, I'm going to put them out on my desktop. Here, I might want to create a new folder and call it DesVizWeb. And I'll put my new GIF file, named it correctly as prob01a.gif. Save it right there. So I've got my first one done. It's out there. Now my challenge is to go back and create a couple more. Let's just see what that would look like. I'm back to Photoshop Elements, and I'll turn on my grid again. And now I already have 2 blocks. Let's create a third one. It doesn't matter which one of these I duplicate. So I'll click on Middle, and I'll duplicate the layer. And now I'll say lower right. Just again maintaining the discipline of naming the layers. Drag this down, and just to illustrate our nudge feature, I'm not going to use that snap to thing. I'm just going to use my arrows on my keyboard. I'm a little high there, I think, but I can't tell until I zoom in. I'll get it a little off so we can see it when we zoom in. Control plus to zoom in. And now one more keyboard shortcut and one more tool. The hand tool is sort of a dual scroll bar. It's the same as moving the bottom scroll bar and the top scroll bar, but I can kind of go in both dimensions simultaneously. And there's a really good keyboard shortcut. If I'm in the Move tool and I want to switch to the hand tool, rather than having to go up and do that, I can just hold the space bar down, and it temporarily turns any tool into the Move tool, because very often in Photoshop you want to scroll around. And since the scroll bars are a nuisance, the hand tool is cool. You want to get to it quickly. Just the space bar instantly turns whatever tool you're using into the hand tool. Okay, now you can see that I'm a little off. I'm down 1 pixel. I'll zoom in and see what that's like. When I'm down 1 pixel, spacebar hand, and I'm down 1 pixel and over about 3 or 4. So let's go up 1. That looks about perfect, and then over 1, 2, 3. And that's perfect. And again, Snap 2 would have done this, but just it's good to start mastering that nudge tool, because again, it's a very, very important tool. Okay, so zoom out, and this is my second design. Just like I did before, I'll be sure to turn off the grid, and I'm ready to save it again. File, Save for Web, and same exact settings worked for before, so I'm going to be good here. A little larger because I have a little bit more stuff in my image. All expected. Let's click on OK. Now, just give you kind of a lazy person shortcut here. If I click on this file, it's going to bring down the file name, and this would be if I was going to be saving on top of this file. But I'm going to cheat and just change that last A to a B and then save it. So now I have 2. And let's just minimize Photoshop Elements and see what's out in that folder. So out of my desktop in my DesViz web folder, I have my 2 graphics all saved here. Okay, we're about ready to upload our images, and let's just do a couple quick pre-flight check before we do that. You want to make sure your elements are aligned to the grid. In future work, you will receive a deduction if your elements are not on the grid when that's required. So be fastidious and make sure your elements are exactly on the grid. Make sure that the grid is set to not visible. Turn it off. Again, I'll ask you to redo that on the first couple, and then there'll be a point deduction if you keep not doing it. You'll save your design as a GIF, as we talked about. GIF is the proper file format for graphics. And you simply just go back into Photoshop Elements and repeat the process to create new variations. And again, just to review some things to consider when you're saving your designs. The web does not recognize a PSD file, so you don't use Save As, you use Save for Web. Okay, PSD is not yet recognized by web browsers. You should save as GIF or JPEG, one of those two. JPEG for photographs, GIF for solid colors, and for our first many problems we're going to be working with GIF. Save for web, and try to select the fewest colors possible to create the best quality image. Again, that's a trade-off. More colors is bigger, fewer colors is less quality, but smaller in file size. So for black and white, we use 2 colors, and then soon when you begin to use color, you can go to 4 colors, 8 colors, and then go on up. And my advice to you again is make sure you save your work in a purposeful location so you're not spending a lot of time trying to find stuff and you know right where to look. Okay, now that we have 4 variations produced, we're ready to post or upload our designs to our FolioWeb account. We simply go to the FolioWeb homepage and log in. Once you log into FolioWeb, go to the My Portfolio tab and select Upload Portfolio Files to FolioWeb. Select your DesViz Web folder from the menu if you don't have one. See the earlier video on uploading and creating a folder, but we'll review that in just a moment on how it would be done. Browse to your files on your computer and click the Continue button. And be sure, after you've repeated this for all your designs, be sure to preview your designs on the web to make sure that your graphics load. If you can't see them, I can't see them, and if I can't see them, I can't grade them. So this is typically what a web address would look like for your posted file. That is, it would be folioweb.org followed by your username, then the DesViz Web folder designation, and then the name of the file. So for the first problem, prob01a.gif, then prob01b.gif, c.gif, d.gif. So you should have 4 files posted all to the DesViz Web folder, and that's how you would dial it up by typing that into your browser. Okay, so here we are on the FolioWeb homepage, and I'm going to click to log in. I'll log in as Jennifer Student, Student J, with her username and password. And we're going to go to the My Portfolio tab and click on Upload Portfolio Files. Okay, now up to this point, Jennifer has not yet created her DesViz Web folder, so let's do that right now. What we want to do is select the directory that we want to upload into, but she doesn't have DesViz Web. She has a multimedia folder, but she doesn't have DesViz Web. So what we'll do here is do DesViz Web, and spelling absolutely counts. And then we'll upload a file, and at the same time the file is uploaded, FolioWeb will automatically create this new directory, and then it'll be available for us on the second file on the drop-down, and we'll see that in just a moment. So we'll browse to the desktop, find the DesViz Web folder, and upload problem 01a GIF, and click Continue, and it's done. And notice this is the URL like we just had it as an example. I'm going to click on that, and that will bring up that file, and I know it's there. Okay, let's close that down. Let's do it all again. Back to My Portfolio, Upload Portfolio Files. Now we have a DesViz Web folder, and I'm going to browse to problem 01b GIF, open, and click Continue. And that's it. Click on it to verify it's there, and we're all set to go. And then 2 more, and we would be done with problem 1. So in this video we've seen how to first download the design templates and then open them up in Photoshop Elements, duplicate the layers, and create our designs. Once we've created the designs, we save those for the web, selecting GIF as the appropriate file format and naming them according to the directions on the problem assignments. Once the files are saved purposefully, probably out on our desktop in a folder, then we simply go into FolioWeb and upload the files one at a time until we've uploaded all 4. And it generally just takes a couple of minutes and we're all set to go, sometimes even less. That's the basic procedure that we're going to be using for all of the work that we do in the class. That is working with the templates, manipulating the images in Photoshop, and then uploading them to folioweb.org. Well, good luck with this procedure. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll get back to you right away, and we're off to the races.